And hello, golfing world. Welcome to TGD Today. This is Pro Golf Talk Live with you, Roy III and George Honeycutt. We want to welcome you, and we're going to catch up real quick on a couple of tournaments that's ongoing. Somewhat of a quiet week, I guess you could say, in the game of golf.
Quiet,
Yeah. But, again, they leave Doral, Trump National, and the PGA Tour is headed up to Tampa, and they're playing Innisbrook at Palm Harbor, Florida, and they're playing the famous Copperhead course. The course has been around for quite some time, Hugh. We've seen many growth of trees and all that, making this place quite a tight golf course compared to last week.
It's a good golf course. It'll test you as far as your shot-making ability, and if these greens get a little firm, this golf course can play very hard.
Well, they seem to be reporting that the golf course is in as good a shape as they remember, the players, as far as grass being on the course. We've seen it in years past where there were some questionable areas, really not able to get some grass to grow in certain areas and all that, but they've heavily soaked it down with winter rye and get that grass growing. The rough has been taken up a little bit, and the players seem to really like it this week. So,
well, I think, bringing the tour back into there, George, has helped them tremendously, just as far as, being able to increase their budget, with their profits and stuff, because people want to get down there and play. Now, they've got the Island course and they have Copperhead. They've got 36 holes there. So being able to bring the tour back in there, it creates an interest, from the public to want to be able to go there and stay and play, which, they have condos and the whole 9 yards there. So
well, it's a private resort.
It gives you everything. Yeah.
51 weeks out of the year, it is, that resort play.
Yes.
I mean, so, and you get the opportunity of playing on a PGA Tour course. Yeah. So, it's a great marketing tool. And it's one that these courses pay a lot of money to be a part of. So, people seem to forget that. But
it's just called marketing and advertising, bro.
Yeah.
If you want it, you want to get popular, you want to end up making some money, you better spend some to create it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So, again, the Valspar Championship is at Innisbrook, the famous Snake Pit, which is known as 16, 17, and 18. And they have the big snake there, the copperhead, and all the other things. It's pretty neat. And, of course, you see the flowers, the shrubs that spell out Innisbrook, or Inverness, excuse me. And Innisbrook, yeah, I'm sorry. And that's on the par 3 where it comes off the tee box there. So you see that multiple times during the coverages. But the golf course is radically different from, say, Doral, in the fact that Doral is a boomer. It's just those big hitters get out there and they can cut loose on many holes. And where the Copperhead course, you really got to bring course management back into play.
You do, and you don't have as much water on this golf course as you do at Doral. So therefore, this is more shot making around trees, dog legs, in certain situations. So,
and that's where I was going with the dog leg aspects. You've got to make sure, and not only do you have the dogleg consideration, but what they did not see at Doral, at Copperhead, you have quite a bit of elevation change.
Yes, the many holes. I mean, up, down, not just flat, typical South Florida. I mean, this is Tampa. Yes, it's across the bridge in Palm Harbor, but there is a lot of hilly land in that area, and it's created a really good golf course.
Yeah, I've heard several of the players refer to it as almost like you're in South Georgia or some sort of a North Carolina course because of all the pine trees, the elevation change, the higher roughs, the smaller fairway wide width, and so you definitely have to play for the right side of the fairway, whatever it may be, whatever that slope is giving you.
It's almost like a longer version of a Hilton Head of a Harbor Town, with just a little more change in elevation.
I didn't
as far
relate
as
it
your
to that.
shot making around there, how you have to play to certain sides of the fairway, work a dog leg.
Well, there's several holes that really taking out the driver doesn't benefit you. You need to make sure you get it into the short grass and on the right side of the fairway, the proper side of the fairway, to come in toward the green, because several of them are hidden, they're tucked.
And they're not real big greens.
Ah, yeah, good point.
Some are. I mean, you got a couple that are, but most of them are your smaller type greens. It's more old school. I mean, this place has been around a while.
Yeah.
So, it's just – we used to play the mixed team there, and it was a lot of fun to go down there and play with the girls, but it just – it's a golf course that if you're not careful, it'll jump up and bite you.
Well, interestingly, the scores that are coming out of there, some really good play going on. But leading the event as we come on the TGD today with Pro Golf Talk Live is Sean O'Hare at 4 under par through 13. And he started on the back, so he's now on the front side. Hudson Swatford, John Peterson, Adam Scott, Henrik Stenson, Ernie Els, Derek Ernst, Michael Thompson, Kevin Streelman. They are all at -3. And again, you've got Billy Hurley the third. You've got William McGirt. You've got Scott Brown, Ryan Moore, Sean Stefani, Russell Knox, Will Wilcox at -2.
So, I mean, you got some good scores. Nothing extremely low, but, some solid play. And you notice, when you get down around the 1-unders to the evens, I mean, just out of the morning crowd, when it goes down, George, when you're even par and you go down to be tied for 27th and 1 over par is tied for 41st, I mean, the golf course just holds its own.
Sure. And it will. It will. Again, they don't really worry about the wind here. The trees block a lot of any kind of gusts that are coming off the bay.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's more inland, I guess.
It's really not that far from the beach. It's just so well protected by the trees, the pine trees and stuff you're talking about from where they didn't take out a lot of stuff when they built it.
Right.
So, it's not like they went in and cleared it. Okay, well, there's the ocean. You can see that view and whatever. They created it where it was more of an inland type feel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, I think this helps the guys, especially the marquee names that we know will be at Augusta, that this kind of starts to get them into that, T-ball placement type of mentality. They can't just go and rip at 330, much like 18 at Doral. The Blue Monster, of course, which, interestingly, I heard Chris DeMarco make a comment this morning on the Golf Channel that he just absolutely does not like number 18 at Doral. He just believes it's somewhat unfair of a golf hole.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Chris because one year we were paired together the first 2 days. And the reason he's like that is because when we finished, he said, man, thank God, because he Monday qualified to get in because he didn't have his card. He had it and then he lost it. And I want to say it was 96 or 97 when we played together, but we got to 18, and this is back before any of the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And the wind's blowing so hard, we had to try to hit it to the right over there in that little finger because you couldn't even sniff carrying the water.
You couldn't get close.
You almost couldn't get into the water. Put it that way.
Oh, okay.
And then you're back there hitting 3-woods into that green, and that's right after Mr. Floyd had redone it. And remember, balls would hit on the green, they'd roll down in the water.
All the way to the
You could
left.
hit them in the far right side, they'd roll all the way across the green down in the water. So it was one of those, and that's kind of where that came from. And you heard me the other day. This isn't one of my favorite places either, and it's for the same type reason. You get a hole like that, and it's just like, man, can it just get this over
Well, it's a
with?
testament, really, like last week, to Dustin Johnson's final drive on 18, of course, when he wins the event. But he just stands up and blows it over the water to the longer left part of the fairway.
Well, I mean, flew that thing 310, 315 easy.
Right.
Easily. And it is a beast of a golf hole. And it was built back in the day to where you could drive it over into that and then be able to hit it on the green.
Mm-hmm.
And then before they went in and redid it this past time.
And moved the tee boxes back another 150 yards.
Exactly, because guys were hitting 3-woods over there instead of what – and it's just equipment and stuff has just changed things so much. Chris and I'd be back there asking people to play through because we'd be so far behind them.
Right, and that's where I was going with that. The technologies, the balls, everything has just changed this tour so dramatically to where people like Donald Trump, if they want to provide a PGA Tour site, then they have to think about length. And so, again, Copperhead, I don't know that there's much areas that they can grow as far as moving holes, making them longer. So what they do to try to cut down on the bombers per se is to shorten up the make the widers. Yeah, tighten it up. Exactly. Appreciate that. And make the rough a little bit heavier.
Exactly. And I mean, and that's, you think about Hilton Head, same kind of thing, even though you don't have the rough because there is so much tree coverage. But it's about working around the dog legs into certain areas of the fairway.
And the small greens.
Exactly.
So okay, again, Sean O'Hare, 4 under par, a whole host of players, several players at 3 under, several players at 2 under. One player that I noted before we went on the air, Hugh, and that is one John Daly. Again, we mentioned in a previous show that he is there on a sponsor's exemption. He's just this week come out with some comments about the anti-doping policies on the tour, and obviously it's on his mind, or whether it is, and the golf course is just beating him up. But John Daly right now through 9 is 5 over par.
Not good.
So it may be a short week for one John Daly.
I believe it is.
You do have a couple of scores at 4 over. You have several scores at 3 over par, including Padraig Harrington. Again, a little slow start for Padraig. Maybe last week just wore him out. Who knows?
2 weeks ago, and then last week, and whatever but it's about getting back into it. But the fact that he won a golf tournament, hey, so what? It's one bad week. Move on. Get ready for Augusta.
Well, we are, and that's exactly what we're doing here on Pro Golf Talk Live. Coming up very soon, we're going to start our coverage of the majors, and we'll be doing a month of the Masters. We'll be talking about the Masters. We'll go through the golf course for you listeners, and I want you to be sure to check back in with us and listen for Hugh and I to give you hopefully some little historic facts, talk about some of the history of Augusta National. And then also Hugh will be breaking down the golf course for you so you can actually follow along with the golf director and, of course, our coverage of the majors and be able to kind of get an audible and visual bird's eye view of how to play this golf course. We talk about elevation. You have no idea how much elevation change is at Augusta National until you actually go there and see it.
You go try to walk that place, you better be in pretty good shape.
It's tiring.
It will wear you out.
And I have slipped more than once just walking down the hill of number 10. I have slipped and fell. And once you begin rolling, especially the roly-poly here, you don't stop.
Yeah, there's not much to stop unless you happen to catch one of those pine trees.
I had a gentleman come in this week and was talking to me about Augusta, and he said his first visit and only visit to Augusta was, of course, during a practice round. And it amazed him so much of all the spectacular ambiance that is Augusta National. But the most impressive thing to him was that he walked the entire property, including the par 3, and he did not see a weed.
Oh, you won't.
So he said, I didn't see a pine cone. I didn't see a weed. I didn't see a dandelion. I didn't see anything. And he goes, it's just amazing that they can keep that entire property pristine, sterile. It's almost surgical in the way it's been cleaned up.
Oh,
so
when the best thing ever though is when you just sit there and you look at that golf course after play, guys are finishing and you're watching coming down number 9 and there's like 10 fairway mowers staggered coming down that fairway. It's just the most unreal thing you'll ever see.
I refer to it almost like a ballet. It's like a dance troupe. It's like a Broadway play.
Yes.
It's scripted to the
it's a
absolute
musical,
oh yeah. It's amazing to watch, whether you're there in the morning when they're literally at 4 a.m. out under floods, getting this course mown and rolled, and the bunkers are pristine. They're getting the edges of the bunkers cut each day. It's absolutely a spectacle, no doubt about it.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go. D's
Very
Johnny on the
nice.
spot there, buddy.
Beautiful.
Now you're going to get tears in my eyes, okay? LPGA has taken a brief period off. They're actually coming back home to Phoenix, Arizona. They'll be at the JTBC Founders Cup in Phoenix, Arizona, coming up March 19th through 22nd. And again, the defending champion there is one Kerry Webb. However, we're going to be strongly looking at the MB Parks and the Lydia Ko's and the Stacey Lewises and the Shan Fangs and, just these LPGA players that have now reached the pinnacle, and one Lydia Ko being number 1 player in the world at 17 years old, Hugh.
Yeah, I'm not betting against her. Not a chance.
You can't bet against her in
Not a
any
chance.
tournament. She has shown up for each of these events on the tour, whether it's international sites or domestic U.S. sites, and she's up at the top of the leaderboard every tournament.
Pretty amazing.
It is for 17.
Yes.
And so, again, brief period off for them, but they'll be getting back to action very soon. Now, ongoing this morning, the European Tour is at the Tushwani Open, and they are at Pretoria Country Club, and that's in South Africa. and some really, really good numbers being shot at this golf course, Hugh. Madsen and Horsey are tied at 7 under par, 63. Nice first round.
Yes.
And we talked about this last week where there was J.B. Holmes 62 posted on Thursday. And, of course, he was in the hunt going down to the last, but was not able to complete the job. But, again, to jump out with a 63, and there's only one 64 right behind him, and that's Wally Coetzee. And then you got Raphael Jacqueline, you got Dean Brewmeister, you got Keith Horn, Brett Rumford's at -5. So you've got several guys hovering right there. Some really good scores. I'm surprised on this first day of play.
And Pretoria is just outside of Johannesburg, George, so you're back into the altitude. Ball's going a little further. I mean, this golf course is not short by any means, but it is Kikuyu grass with Bermuda grass greens. So greens, they say, are rolling around 10. So, I mean, you're looking at hitting 7 irons. If you normally hit them 165 yards, they're going close to 180 to 185. So you've got that 10% increase in altitude and in yardage. So, it will help. And that's why you see some of the numbers. And some people handle out the altitude better than others. You got Robert Rock, he's only at 1 under. That's a name people know.
Right.
George Coetzee, he's from South Africa. He's at 3 under. He's okay. He's right there. There's a lot of golf to be played. And in Johannesburg, you don't know if you're going to get the in Pretoria, too, as well. Like I said, they're 30 minutes apart. It's like going Marietta to Atlanta. It's right in that neighborhood. You don't know if you're going to get afternoon thunderstorms or what, but as long as the weather's good, there's no humidity, you've got altitude, the ball can go forever, so it's a lot of fun to play there. And I would expect to see more low scores like we do today.
Interestingly, Hugh, there's almost 25, there's over 20 golfers at +1 tied for 81st.
Yes.
That is going to be an absolute shootout just to make the cut for the weekend.
Yeah, you're looking there it's top 65 make the cut, not 70.
Well, you're looking at 81 at 20-plus players, and then you have another, 15 to 20 that are tied 50th at even par. So
it's 52nd tied, 52nd at par. I would say you got to shoot at least 2 under to be safe. 1 under might make it, but I'd say 2 to be safe.
You would assume if the leader's at -7, which there's 2 at -7, there's 1 at -6, and then a host of -5, you would assume that they're at least going to go out and shoot 69 the second day and add to that lead at least to 8 to 9.
Yeah, then you could have one of these guys at even par go out and shoot 61 or 2.
You could.
I mean, it's obviously the scoring and the ability to do that is there. I just would say the guys that are playing average that happen to shoot par today, you're going to have to go out and shoot 68 to 67 tomorrow just to make sure you're around for Saturday and Sunday.
Well, interestingly, there's only one par 5 on the front, and so the scoring opportunities, there are several. There's number 7. There's only it's only 352 yards, a par 4. You're looking at there's only one par 5 on the back. So these guys are really, really playing these par 3s well, and they're playing several of the par 4s very well. You've got a par 4 352, and then you've got par 4s at 490. Mm-hmm. So you've got to pick and choose where those pins are and what you want to attack on this golf course, because you don't have the 4 par 5s to go out and just assume I'll make birdie on each of those and that's where I'll do my scoring.
Exactly.
You're going to have to play because the majority of the course, the way they've got it laid out at par 70, it's 7,063 yards. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to play these par 4s quite expertly through the week and not just assume that making par on a par 4 is going to get you into the cut.
Yeah, no.
So they've got a par 3 at 202. They've got a par 3 at 135. And we've seen the par 3s at the shorter distances.
Well, they showed a hole-in-one this morning.
Well, but you would assume that they would play at 2.6 to 2.8 as far as their average score for the day. But we've seen, much like Pebble Beach, much like some other courses where you've got the 130 or less par 3, they can come back and play at 3.1.
Yes.
Real easily. And it depends on the hazards. It depends on the slope of the greens. It depends on the spin.
Depends
because
on the wind.
You're coming in.
Yards.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the golf course itself is kind of intriguing in the fact that you've got tree-lined fairways, you've got some dog legs, you've got some undulated greens, and although they didn't light the greens up, like you just mentioned, a 10, that's kind of average.
Yeah,
So
pretty, I'd say very average, if not a little on the slow side. So, but I mean, that's where, look for a shootout. I think that's what we're going to get.
well, they got bent grass greens. You're running again the stemp meter at 10, and then you got Kikuo fairways, and we got Kikuo roughs. So, again, you get in the rough areas on this golf course, and I noticed this morning during the coverage, several of the guys were having to do the Kikuo pitch out because simply the ball just disappeared, and they couldn't get the hosel.
If it
through
doesn't sit up, you can forget it. It's not coming out.
Hugh, I wanted to, we're kind of at that point where we're talking about Augusta now, the first major of the year, and we're getting into that discussion point as far as who out there on the PGA Tour is kind of looking at leading the stats. Who's playing the best, who are we going to consider? We know the Rory McIlroy is probably number one consideration. You got to look at, I think Henrik Stenson is a good possibility for this major championship. Would Bubba be able to pull off his third? So we're kind of looking at this. Again, the FedEx Cup standings, the same guy this year is again in the lead as last year, Jimmy Walker, again through 9 events. Interestingly, top 10 finishes this year. Hideki Matsuyama and Robert Streb both are tied with 5 top 10s in basically 10 events. So that's 2 names that we would have never brought up.
You'd have never brought up, and then it is Augusta, and so it's how do they handle the heat of Augusta, the pressure, the media hype of people, the atmosphere around there. I mean, just the atmosphere of Augusta itself, George, intimidates folks.
Right. Scoring averages for the year so far, Bubba Watson is leading scoring average at 69.3. Webb Simpson's number 2. Dustin Johnson, our last week winner, at number 3. Brooks Koepka at number 4, and Ryan Palmer at number 5.
I tell you, I like Koepka. I really like everything about his golf game, the way he plays, his golf swing, short game. Pretty impressive. I just think the main thing about this whole Augusta deal is, and the saddest thing to me is, this will be Ben Crenshaw's last one with Carl.
Yeah. Good point.
And they've been promoting that as, this will be his last Masters that he'll participate in, and we all know all the history and the love of Augusta and the game that Ben Crenshaw has, and to have Carl Jackson be on his bag all these years and this will be their last one together. It's going to remind you of when Mr. Palmer and them did their retirement and walked away from it.
Yeah, it just seems like yesterday you picture a Carl just smiling and coming over and hugging Ben, at his win in 18 after that week passing of his mentor and his coach.
Yep.
And
Harvey Pinnock.
Yep. So again, those are memories we have in our minds and our heads for the rest of our lives.
And I've been lucky enough, when I lived in the Aiken, Augusta area for so long, that getting to know Carl Jackson, especially when I was on tour and seeing him, one of the nicest individuals and most humble individuals you'll ever meet in your life. And just to know that all that's coming to an end for the two of them is going to be the hardest thing for me.
Give me your thoughts on driving distance so far for this year. Who's leading the driving distance?
I mean, it's got to either be Dustin or Bubba.
Brandon Haggie.
Who is Brandon Haggie?
321.5.
Has he made a cut?
I don't know that dude. Number 2, Dustin, as you assumed. Now, Brandon's at 321.5. Dustin's at 317. Third is Charlie Belgian. Would you have ever imagined Charlie Belgian being up there?
To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you who Charlie Belgian is.
309. Look at the cutoff. I mean, that's 8 yards on average behind Dustin. Dustin's 4 yards behind Brandon. Then you got Bubba at 4 at 309, only a half yard behind Charlie. And then, right behind Bubba at a half yard, is Brooks Koepka. People don't know Brooks. I mean, they're just now getting to know him. They're seeing him. They're watching him play. They're seeing him up at the top of the leaderboard. But they don't realize. I mean, you see him on TV, and he kind of looks just like everybody else.
But the
You
thing
know,
is, if
not
he's got
big,
that kind
powerful,
of length with
that-
his accuracy that we've seen so far, I think he'd be a high pick in that fantasy golf league thing y'all do.
Yeah, exactly. I agree, and I've tried to go with him pretty hard. Driving accuracy percentage, and now this is a number, Hugh, that I found interesting this year, and I wanted to bring this up and cover this in the stats. Driving accuracy percentage this year for the tour for the year so far, and again, we're doing the wraparound season thing, which is a whole nother discussion point. Francesco Molinari is leading at 76.1%.
What? Really?
Yes. I would have never,
No.
in my wildest dreams, put his name within the top 20 of driving accuracy.
No, not even close.
Stephen Ockler is at 75%. Again, Francesco was at 76. David Toms is number 3 at 75. Ches Reavie is at number 4 at 73. And Heath Slocum's at 72. The tour average, 59% driving accuracy.
I can see that.
59%. I remember these numbers, dude, several years ago, even leading up to a couple of years ago. These numbers hovered around 80, 81, 82%. We remember the years gone by that we'll never see again, the Calvin Peets of the world
Oh, yeah.
that were in the 84, 85, 86 percentage of fairways hit.
Yeah.
We'll never see that again unless somebody falls out of a tree and doesn't get their arms set properly, and then they go out and get on the tour.
With the equipment and and the absolute obsession, George, with how far you hit the golf ball
Bingo.
has
That's-
ruined this whole stat.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going. I mean, it's gotten back up to that tour driving distance thing. Yeah, great. Okay, Brandon, you can hit it 321.5. Congrats.
Have you made a cut?
How many fairways have you hit and how many cuts have you made?
If you're not making a cut, that driving distance is not making you any money.
Greens and regulation. Who do you think's leading that?
Since I can't pull it up on my iPad, I don't know, but let's see.
Cameron Beckman,
Oh, wow.
74.2%. Stuart Sink at 73. Will McKenzie at 73. Jason Day at 72. And Dudley Hart.
Well, it just
At
goes to show
72.
you they can't put it in the ocean off the bow of the Titanic, and it's at the bottom of the ocean.
That's good, bud. Tour average, again, Cameron Beckman leading at 74.2. Tour average, 65.6%. Greens and regulation, 65%. Okay?
I mean,
Does that number surprise you?
It does. Go back up just a little bit. I mean,
Don't forget your mic, dude.
74% is really, that's a pretty good stat.
Yeah?
I mean, that's excellent.
Well, 3 or 4.
I'd
That's-
say anywhere 72, 71 and above is a pretty good ball striking.
Was this a number that you followed?
Yeah,
yourself?
because it just showed how good I was playing out of the trees in the rough. But, yeah, I mean, if you can hit greens, you know.
Because this is assuming they don't know, in this stat, they don't know where the ball's coming from. They just want to know that you hit the green in
Oh,
regulation.
yeah. And that's the thing, and that's what I preach to the kids all the time is, if you can hit fairways and hit greens and just give yourself opportunities, you're going to make, the worst should make is par, and you've got an opportunity to make birdie. And so, these guys doing this, at least they're giving themselves and taking stress off of them about their putting. They may not be making a lot of birdies or doing different things, but they're hitting a lot of greens.
Let's talk about putting. Strokes gained to putting. Freddie Jacobson, 1.3. I didn't even know he was still around, dude.
Oh, he's still around.
Vaughn Taylor, 1.2.
Vaughn's making a nice comeback now.
Anirban Lahiri.
Who in the Sam Hill is that?
He is the lone Indian golfer. He's from India, Bombay. Actually, he's out from a small town outside of Bombay, real small town. And he is going to be participating in the Masters this year.
Good for him.
And he's ranked, I think, 27th or 28th in the world.
Okay.
So he is the lone India participant.
So he's coming off of the Asian tour.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he does have a few tournaments here in the PGA Tour. Otherwise, he wouldn't have shown up on these stats. Aaron Badley at 0.9 and Ben Curtis at 8.9. there's a couple of names I just really thought that I would see here on the strokes gained putting.
Yeah, and the leader, I wouldn't have thought that. Some of this stuff can be misleading too, though, George.
I think so. I agree.
Some guys are playing less tournaments than others. I mean, you hear some names on here you haven't heard. You haven't seen Cameron Beckman, any of these guys on television, and yet, they're probably not playing as many events as the other guys. It's probably a minimum amount, then it puts you into the stats.
Right, exactly. And I thought about that too when I was reviewing these. Stroke gain, tee to green, you're looking at Jim Furyk, number 1, Dustin Johnson, number 2, Will McKenzie, Hideki Matsuyama, and Bubba Watson. Now, those names you're seeing at the top of the leaderboard on Sunday.
And that's what you would expect to see in some of these other categories.
Strokes gained total. And this is, again, you're looking at the overall strokes gained during a round, not just tee to green, not just putting, but strokes gained total. Bubba Watson, number 1, Will McKenzie, Hideki Matsuyama, Vaughn Taylor, Jimmy Walker. Of course, you're seeing now these names repeat themselves.
Yes.
Scrambling, Chad Collins, Martin Laird, Bubba Watson, Matt Kuchar, S.J. Park. Okay? This tells me, the scrambling stat tells me that, you're getting down in, 2 out of every 3 shots that you're leaving yourself in a bunker or off the green or whatever. You're getting down. Chad Collins leading that. Interesting. Martin Laird, second place. Bubba Watson. We all know that he has to scramble.
He's got great hands. He's got great touch, and, that's expected.
Matt Kuchar.
Yes.
This shows that Matt is not exactly in perfect form off the tee box. He's not exactly in perfect form in his approach shots, so he's having to get up and down to save himself, to make a cut or even to finish high in a tournament. And then S.J. Park, I haven't seen any of his game.
I couldn't tell you anything about the man, so I don't know.
Tour average, interestingly, in scrambling right now, is just over 1 of every 2 shots, 58%.
That's poor.
So this goes back to let me bomb it, and I'll worry about the other stuff later.
Yeah, I agree.
Would you agree?
I agree. That's where I'd be putting more of my knowledge and my time into short game and working on putting if I was some of those guys.
Well, again, we'll be looking at these stats, folks, as the weeks come up to, of course, the first major of the year, the Masters. And we're looking forward to bringing you extensive coverage of this year's Masters event and all the major championships of the year. We're going to have some doozies this year, and I'm excited. British
Should be really good.
Is, of course, at St. Andrews. We've got Whistling Straits coming back onto the schedule. A lot of fun. And then we've got a brand-new golf course out west that no one's ever seen before. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Should be good.
So TGD Radio and TV are produced and broadcast by the Zeus Radio Network for thegolfdirector.com. When visiting the Golf Director, be sure to check out our feature course pages where you'll find up-to-date information about course conditions, specials, and much more. Need help with your next golf vacation? Just call Dave. Give us a call, 844-GO-GOLF-1, 844-464-6531. All of our programming is archived for listening and viewing on demand. Catch up on any show you may have missed. Click on the TGD Radio or the TGD TV tabs in the menu screen at thegolfdirector.com. We're now available on over 1 billion devices. That's billion with a B. At iTunes, Audio Realm, TuneIn, YouTube, Ustream, Roku, Blueberry, and Myrtle Beach Golf app. George Honeycutt, Hugh Roy III, and Big D Behind the Glass, we thank you for tuning in. There's more golf news and information coming up next.